Happy New Year, everybody. So let's kick off 2021 with a brand new episode of Deleted WrestleZone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up. 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 Get up, get up.
Welcome, everybody, to Deleted WrestleZone. All things that is pro wrestling from AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, many promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, J-Rod here. Now, as you know, we normally do a Wednesday Night War review. We're not going to do that, but I am going to talk about, of course, NXT's last 2020 event before we started the year, but also let's talk about AEW's latest event on Dynamite, the celebration of Brodie Lee, who sadly left this earth, in a short time that we had with AEW. So let me give you guys what I thought about this show. I know there's been a lot of criticism with WWE, the way they did not honor Jon Huber, better known as Luke Harper, known as Brodie Lee. I know people were saying they could have done something better. Impact star Brian Myers did stated that there was no 10 bell salute, no video package, of his memory. That sort of thing kind of made people question WWE's actions. But there is some factors we need to talk about. A, we haven't seen this type of tribute not since Eddie Guerrero when he passed away years ago. And two, Jon Huber is no longer with WWE, so that kind of makes a little thing differently because it kind of say like it's no longer their problems. But I know WWE stars who knew him personally would have wanted it, but there is like talk from various fans that maybe they decided, maybe AEW they're allowing AEW doing this. But I did made a good compelling argument that this would be AEW's first show where they do a tribute celebrating the life of Brodie Lee. And I have to say it was one of the best ones ever. Now, here's what I'm going to say. This is where I'm going to draw a little bit of a criticism. WWE, when they announce that someone dies, they don't take a pause on their storylines and all that. They don't give special matches, to celebrate the life of a wrestler who's been there. We haven't seen that for a while, not since Eddie Guerrero. But in this one, yes, it did. We're seeing that. So for the entire night, all the Dark Order members, who we know them as the heel factions, they, for one night only, they became the faces of the entire night, and every one of them won their respective matches. But at the same time, we saw, how do I say this, every wrestler talk about Brodie, their experience. Jon Moxley, who knew him back then from a previous independent promotion, Combat Zone, but he did made a very huge honor of him, the way he spoke about him. And then there's Darby Allin, who mentioned when he said that he was the one wrestler he wanted to face, but when he first got to know him, he saw this was not, that he's not all about ego, that he's out there to elevate those. And sadly, Darby Allin never got the opportunity to wrestle him because he said that he was on his list, like I'm assuming like a bucket list. Then you got guys like Dax Harwood, Colt Cabana, Arn Anderson, and referee Bryce Rembergs. They talk about what of a credible husband, a father he is to his sons, and that's something that a lot of people cannot see when he's not this character where you see, oh, he's a huge, gigantic guy, that he looks like he's going to rip you apart. But underneath that, he was a gentle soul, a gentle person, a totally genuine, big-hearted person. And that's something that a lot of people talk about. Even Eddie Kingston talked about how he believed that Jon Huber believed in him. That sort of makes other wrestlers who he put over a lot of good wrestlers to be on top of him, like make a name for themselves. And then Jericho was amongst those. How you remember talking about him, how people can say all these things that I said, that he was a totally genuine, big-hearted person, and he was the one who suggested of signing um, Brodie Lee into AEW. But he said there was an example about him that he has this dog who is really a mean person, mean dog that barks a lot. But whenever Jon Huber was stopping by his place, the dog is gentle to him, and I think the dog knew that he was totally a good person, and that's the kind of person that we can recognize Jon Huber, aka Brodie Lee, Luke Harper, as much as we want. But he helped elevate a lot of good wrestlers in his short time that he'd been in AEW. And of course, I cannot I loved every match that they put out. I mean, let's talk about the first one. Private Party and Matt Hardy versus um, Young Bucks and Colt Cabana. Now, keep in mind, they're all the stories and matches that they normally do were put on hold just for one night. And this is like right after they did the 10 bell salute, which all the AEW stars and staff came out to give them their moment of silence to Brodie Lee. But the match was unbelievably good. Then I enjoyed everything that they did in this one, especially the way that Colt Cabana, he looks like he was about to tear up. But even Jericho said, it's okay to cry, damn it. And I guess everybody is feeling the same pain, seeing this guy we were had high hopes was gone too soon for us. But the match was great. And of course, they allowed the victory to go to Colt Cabana when he applied a very interesting combo where he had Isaiah Cassidy in the Chicago skyline, and then they pulled off the Indie Taker on Mark Quinn, and then they allowed Colt Cabana put the Superman lift on him, and that is so a good way to end it. But later they decided to spice up by adding a little bit of the stories where the Acclaim still had unfinished business with the Bucks until they were tossed in there to the Wolves by SCU's Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels. And Colt Cabana actually gave them the double elbow after they were super kicked by the Bucks, and that was a pretty good way to move on the match. The next one we had Lance Archer teaming with Stu Grayson and Evil Uno. But Lance Archer, wow, he came out in a one of the gear that um, Brodie Lee used to wear back in the day. I don't remember if this was I think it was Big Rig from what I understand, because he had another name back then other than Brodie Lee. It was Big Rig and all that, and it was so amazing where he did it. Even though I enjoyed this one too, and not and all this happening, the way this match ended, they allowed Evil Uno and Stu Grayson to pull off the fatality on of course um the Blade, and I thought that was a great finisher. Giving every member of the Dark Order a finishing maneuver. And then we got, I think, one of the most best matches I saw: the Good, the Bad, and the Hungy teaming up once again. I'm talking about Hangman Adam Page, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds. So it was a great match. But if you noticed, John Silver was wearing the outfit, a similar outfit that Brodie Lee wore when he first arrived in AEW, and he made one just for him for his size. And what better way to honor someone like him? And out of all the people in the Dark Order, well, there's two in my opinion. John Silver was amongst those that was deeply affected by him. And what I liked about this match is before the bell ring, they were facing against Inner Circle's MJF, Santana Ortiz. Both Reynolds and Silver pulled out the roll of paper like rolled up paper on and spanked slapped it on Santana Ortiz, which is what Brodie Lee does in Being the Elite. If you ever seen Be Elite, you know those are funny. And of course, Brandy Rhodes mentioned this to Silver, saying, why did you just become Brodie Lee's bitch? Because he always did that. So that's always been one of those stories that we love. But of course, Hangman Page did the same thing on MJF. And but in ringside, much of the night, you see Brodie Lee Jr., -1, being right there with his mask. And during this match, there was two occasions where MJF disrespected Brodie Lee Jr. And then the second time when he disrespected him again, he actually Brodie Lee Jr. -1 whacked him with the kendo stick. And that wasn't the biggest surprise ever. Warlow shows up and causes another skirmish, try to ensure that Inner Circle wins. But out of nowhere, we just saw a familiar face. Someone from Brodie Lee's past. And I'm talking about Eric Rowan, who now goes by Eric Redbeard. Now, we can all agree he doesn't work there, but the real question is now, is he going to be working full time with them? Because we do know he's a free agent. But we don't know if by this point, is he going to be officially signed with AEW? And possibly there's fans talking about this, saying, will he take the leadership as as Dark Order? Well, I don't know if that's what they want to do, because I know that if you guys knew the stories about Brodie Lee, how he put over a lot of the Dark Order members, he put them above himself, and that's something that's been talked about. But the match didn't end that way. It ended with Silver applying the discus lariat on to Ortiz when he flipped them off, and he won. But as soon as the match kind of ended, he broke out into tears. And I know Silver was, like I said, amongst two of the people that I know of that were affected by Brodie's passing. And out of nowhere, here comes Eric Rowan, you know, trying to give him comfort, and he brought on a sign that says, "Goodbye for now, my brother. See you down the road." And that is a very emotional, according to what friends and people who knew him saying, that that's always what he says to everyone when they're done one show and they move on to the next, and was very emotional. Then the next match, I think this one was which one was it? Oh yeah, this one was the women's match. Tay Conti teaming with Anna Jay, facing off against Penelope Ford and of course Britt Baker. Much of the match, she just took a pause because she wants to show the world how much Brodie Lee means a lot to her, and that kind of affected her too, because I remember she did state it when, if you guys recall, when Anna Jay first joined the Dark Order, she was wearing like this mask thing, and they told her to toss it. And of course, Brodie asked her, "Where's your mask?" They told me to toss it, and he replied, "Oh, thank God." I think he might have thought the same thing. Like that looks ridiculous. I think he might have felt like, nah, give her a much better look, So I think, but I think it felt like, us very grateful of her. Like maybe he knew that all along that he didn't need the mask. So, but she was mostly affected, and she again applied the move, the Queen Slayer, onto what was her name, Penelope Ford. So it was a good match how it ended. But however, during the post match, Britt Baker goes out doing a little promo saying there's a little conspiracies against her. But out of nowhere, here comes Thunder Rosa, who has unfinished business with her, and that is something we have been noticing, and I'm like excited for that. Then finally, we get to the final match, which was the Brodie Lee Jr.'s dream match. Now, he handpicked these wrestlers as a dream match. His three favorite wrestlers is Cody Rhodes, Ten, and of course, freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy. The first person that comes out is Ten, which is his first time being in a main event. This is something special for him. And of course, we got Orange Cassidy. He comes out, gives him the little thing that Orange does like that with his fans. and of course Cody was there too, facing off against Team Taz. Now, much of the match, it was like unbelievable. Like you saw the storylines. Can Cody coexist with Ten? If who can recall the rivalry between both the Dark Order and of course, the Nightmare Family, and that was always one of those match storylines that they put in, and it was really great. And of course, there was a good moment where Taz comes out trying to whack someone with the chair. Here comes Arn Anderson. While this was happening, Orange Cassidy gave the Superman punch to Ricky, and of course, Cody Rhodes did the Crossroads on to Ricky, and of course, it was what's his name, Ten, who made the finisher move. So almost everybody in Dark Order made the pin. Now, post match, Team Taz were doing a beatdown. Out of nowhere, here comes Darby Allin, and of course, how do I say, Darby Allin and Sting. That was the biggest surprise ever. I was like, whoa, that is pretty cool. I was like, wow, this is pretty good. I like it. But the way the match ended, the entire event ended, Cody had brought out Brodie Lee Jr. and his mom, um, Brodie Lee's wife, Amanda. Along behind them, we have Ten and Tony Khan. And of course, they laid the boots of Brodie Lee right in the middle of the ring. That's a sign of way of retiring the boots. That's sort of like a wrestling tradition that you may or may not have heard about. But at the same time, Tony Khan gave Brodie Lee the TNT title, the one that Brodie Lee won against Cody not too long ago, and he presented him as the TNT champion for life. That title design that we saw is no longer going to be around because that was mostly the one that was used by Brodie. From my understanding, they're in fact building a new design, which I'm excited to see how it's going to go. But they ended with throwing a video package tribute of Brodie, and I thought it was pretty good. It was so emotional, and a lot of the WWE wrestlers who witnessed it, like Sami Zayn, Daniel Bryan, um, Big E, Xavier Woods, a few others met I can recall, and they're like very crying and hurtful, and they loved it. I think a lot of the WWE superstars who knew Brodie and they saw what AEW did, I believe they praised them for giving out a very good tribute show. And I feel like this is a company that knows they know how to take care of one of their own. We haven't seen something like this with WWE for a long time. And I feel that if WWE can wake up and say, look, there's times we can put a hold on the storylines that we do that. Let's just do this in honor of our fallen brother or fallen sister. That is something they should have known, but it didn't happen. But something else happened when after this whole thing happened. I saw someone tweeted this saying, "Where was Five? Why didn't he wasn't a match?" If you guys have noticed it, Five was around Brodie Lee Jr. the entire time, and I think he was just there. I don't know if he volunteered or he was asked if he can do this to be the guy next to Brodie Lee Jr. To make sure he's having a good time, that he's watched over, someone to cheer him up. And I feel like for a kid who's 8 years old, he knows that his dad is gone, but you're gonna need people who were close to your dad that will give you comfort and know that a part of him still lives on in his friends, people that he looked up to, people that he watched over. And I think that's what he needed. And I say Five did a good job doing that the entire time. I know he would have wanted it, but we got to think about his family, you know. And I know his 3-year-old son, he still doesn't know what is going on. He's still too young to understand what is happening. So I have to say, AW, thank you for throwing an amazing show. And I hope you guys can do something like this down the line if one other wrestler is taken from us. So I think I'm about to tear up, but I'll be right back. Okay, so that's over with me stop crying. All right, so let's start with NXT right now. So Starts out with the opener with Isaiah Swerve Scott, who has this brand new attitude where ever since he beat Jake Atlas, he shows up this attitude. This time he's facing off against the Colossus Bronson Reed. Now, much of it you see Isaiah Swerve Scott being disrespectful, being cocky, claiming he's the best. But however, how are you going to beat a guy of a big guy like Bronson Reed? That is a good question, but it was a good match. So I wasn't sure how this one was going to play out, but I felt okay. It makes perfect sense. The only reason Scott became who he is when he asked for a rematch against Jake Atlas. So, but the way it ended with Bronson Reed pick up the victory makes me think: is he going to ask for another rematch? I don't know. So we just got to wait and see where they're going to go with that. Now, as you know, they throw on these who breakouts, these year awards. This time they did a little different, so they just announced who's. So here's the winner for Breakout Star of the Year, and that person is Shotzi Blackheart. I feel she is a Breakout Star of the Year because I have become a fan how she comes out with her tank, throwing like balls to the walls type of um, wrestler with a tank. That is, I never seen like it. I wasn't much of a fan until I saw a clip of her where William Regal made an appearance on Evolve and offering her an NXT contract, and then moving on when I start seeing her more, I'm like, wow, she is a unique character on in the ring. You know, where she's howling, you know, being this tough girl. You know, that's something I always love seeing is unique people how they are in the ring, and I feel she deserved that one. Next match is a tag team. Now, we have Grizzled Young Veterans versus the former NXT tag team champions, Breezango. Now, when this match was set up, it was announced we have the return of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classics. Now, I'm a huge fan of that show, of that the tag team of the Dusty Classics. I love it. So my answer is, Grizzled Young Veterans were last year. They were like almost could have won the match if it wasn't for Pete Dunne and Matt Riddle. But this coincides to it when they mentioned this with this match with the Grizzled Young Veterans facing off against Breezango. The match was pretty darn good, you know, where you get to see Grizzled Young Veterans. Okay, they were the first ever NXT UK Tag Team Champions facing off against former NXT Tag Team Champions. So we're seeing, okay, they're taking it a bit more seriously. But however, in a certain point of the match, Fandango got hurt. He jumped off one of the railings and landed on his knee or so. They were kind of using that as a way to make sure he is out and Tyler Breeze has to be on his own, which he did, and that allowed Breezango to, Grizzled Young Veterans to win the match. But however, in post match, once again, those idiots, Everrise, thinking they're all that, telling the world Everrise ruled. They brought in a referee for no apparent reason, trying to have her hold them back, and she was nothing but a pawn in her scheme. She just had enough and walked away. But Grizzled Young Veterans are not amused by their actions. You see, the problem is this. This dates back about a month or two ago. Grizzled Young Veterans were already set to face Everrise, but they were interrupted by Imperium. Everrise felt like they were being ignored, which frankly they are. But when you piss off guys like Grizzled Young Veterans, you better make sure you guys better grow some pair and beat the toughest dudes ever. That's how I see it. So we'll see what happens down the line. Now, we have, speaking of tag teams, they announced Tag Team of the Year, and this year's tag team for the second time, or who knows how many times they won this. It's Undisputed Era. Yes, Undisputed Era won again. And even they all said, next time they better have all four trophies for them for tag teams. There's been various variations of these guys in the tag team um, division. I've seen Cole with Kyle O'Reilly, with Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly with Strong, that sort of thing. They're kind of been using the Freebird rules, that thing. But of course, Cole did mention that he and Roderick Strong are entering the Dusty Classics. That is like saying, I think right now he feels, okay, look, he's going for the gold for the NXT Championship. We're going for the tag team titles. So I think that it's like another variation of the second wave of the prophecy is going to be fulfilled. And I feel like we'll see how that goes. I feel like I'm very interested in how they're going to play this one out. Now, we have seen for weeks video packages coming from Xia Li and Boa, where they've been training by some unknown master. Now, we don't know who she is. We've seen this older gentleman by her side who's some sort of, I don't know, like a speaker or dossier, whatever he is. But recently we've been seeing Boa and Xia Li improving their skills. But the real question is, how far have they changed under this new master? And it was announced they're coming back next week. I'm very excited to see how this is going to go. Now, the next match we have Mercedes Martinez versus Valentina Ferros. I don't know who she is. I can tell you anyway, Mercedes Martinez squashed her badly. But however, she did made a statement putting the entire women's division in NXT on notice. But is she the next competitor to face Io Shirai for the NXT Women's Championship? I don't know. So we'll just wait and see where they're gonna go with this. I'm kind of curious. Now, they did really announce two winners for two different awards. One is Female Competitor Year, and surprise, it was Io Shirai. I have to say, this year has been very good for her ever since she became NXT Women's Champion during the In Your House event. And of course, for Male Competitor of the Year, Adam Cole, who is the longest reigning NXT champion of all time, who beat out Finn Balor's record. And he probably earned it more. So he did state it. Let's go get some more, or do a second wave of the prophecy. And that I would love to see. Next match we have Pete Dunne and Roderick Strong. This is mostly a how do I say this? A grudge match. As you guys recall, a couple years back, Roderick Strong and Pete Dunne were a tag team in the Classic until he caused Pete Dunne to lose and align himself with the Undisputed Era. But the match was so hard hitting, you don't know what to expect. But however, it did end it in the favor of Pete Dunne. How he was the human chess. He can try to figure out your weak points once he finds it, and that's how he was able to beat Roderick Strong. Now, when that match was over, they introduced for the next award, Match of the Year award, and it went to, I felt it was the right match. It was Kyle O'Reilly and Finn Balor in NXT TakeOver 31 for the NXT Championship. Now, Finn Balor did told William Regal, I don't need an award, but I'll take this for Kyle. So he goes up to get to the ring. He's all of a sudden is confronted by Pete Dunne. Now, Pete Dunne has worked real hard to get to where he needs to go. He wants a shot of the NXT Championship, but Balor told Dunne to get in line because he knows he has a lot of wrestlers that want a piece of him. Now, while he's in the ring saying all this, like giving a pretty good promo that was the best match, but however, Balor did say the reason he didn't need the trophy is that he has something that will remember him. He said that he broke his jaw. Now, Kyle O'Reilly said that he spent 15 years getting to where he needs to be. And he said that he knows what's at stake. He knows that Balor's number one, that he's the champion, that he should be the one that carry that title. So it was a pretty good promo between the two of them. But however, they were interrupted by the return of none other than Scarlett and Karrion Kross. As you know, Karrion Kross, he did not lose the title. He had to relinquish it because he injured himself. And that is something that Kross felt that title is meant for him. So, but all of a sudden, he was interrupted by none other than the Archer of Infamy. I'm talking about Damian Priest. They fought through the entire ramp to the backstage until they finally took each other out. So we all know those two are set to face each other at New Year's Evil, which is going to be an interesting pay-per-view. So I'm very excited to see where they're going to go. Now, they throw in a little side story here about Rhea Ripley. As you know, it's already been announced by Dexter Lumis through his drawings, through his art, for the match in New Year's Evil between Rhea Ripley and Rachel Gonzalez is going to be a last woman standing. Now, Ripley recalled her counts ever since she went on the road with Rachel Gonzalez, that they were good friends, they were like sisters. But things have changed, like ever since she was no longer around, she wasn't there when she needed her, and all that, and she aligned herself with Dakota Kai. And now this is one of those rivalries where Raquel Gonzalez felt, she's being overshadowed by someone like Rhea Ripley, and she wants to make her name for herself by getting rid of her. So this is going to be one of those good matches where it tells a story. Once they were friends, and now we're seeing who is going to be the dominant woman in the NXT. So that is something I'm very excited to see. Now, the next thing we have is Legado del Fantasma. Ever since they make their appearance by deceiving everyone by Santos Escobar winning the Cruiserweight, he's been saying that he is untouchable, that no one can beat him, that he believes that the Lucha Libre culture has been disrespected by people saying they are making fun of them. Look what they did at Breezango. There were a bunch of guys who just like to have fun, but they consider that as an insult. And they claim that 2021 will be the year where they will run. And according to Santos Escobar, the Legado del Fantasma are the true leaders of Lucha Libre. But their little promo was interrupted by Lucha, 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 Lucha. That's right, Lucha House Party, Grand Metalik, and of course, Lance Dorado. They find their version of Lucha Libre disrespectful. Like, to them, they're saying, who are you guys to declare yourselves the true leaders? And they're saying Lucha Libre is everyone, but Legado doesn't believe that. They believe that everyone else who been these characters are disrespecting them. But of course, it was a good match to see. It turned into a tag team between Legado Fantasmas, Raul Mendoza, and Joaquin Wilde versus Lucha House Party. I was so impressed with this whole match, what Lucha Libre should be. Now, it's kind of like, if you look at Legado, they have like a similar style as Imperium, where they're saying respect the mat. To them, it's more like respect Lucha Libre in their way, not the way that Lucha House Party have been, but they are the true Lucha Libre people that I've always watched. And the match ended in their favor because that is a message to Santos that their way is not the way of Lucha Libre. But Santos believe that things need to be changed. But as long as guys like them exist, it will never happen. Now we get to the future star of the year, and all of a sudden we get is Austin Theory. I was like, I'm like thinking, I don't know what happened. We haven't seen them much, I don't know why he won it, but it is what it is. Now we get to the overall competitor of the year. It was between Io Shirai and Adam Cole, and people voted Io Shirai. So she's now won 2 awards. Now the main event. It's for the North American Championship between Leon Ruff and Johnny Gargano. But before the match, get to it, there was a lot of things that happened before the start of the match. A black cat. Johnny Gargano considered that bad luck. Then the mirror breaking, bad luck. So he's worried that there's a curse. And of course, Leon Ruff wants to prove that the curse is real. But it was a very intense match. I mean, Leon Ruff, I feel like he has proven himself that he belongs in it. But however, Johnny Gargano believes that winning the honor will reshape the NXT in their ways. So, but it did end with Gargano winning the match. But who will be the next competitor? We may never know. So, I think that's it for now with NXT. I say let's talk about the uninteresting thing, but I'll do it anyway. So, let's talk about the views and the ratings as I predicted it from the start, but I never mentioned it to any of you guys. So, let's talk about that now. Now, I wasn't thinking about doing this even though, but however, I kind of predicted it from day one when the death of Brodie Lee came about. And of course, when Tony Khan mentioned there was going to be a special tribute for him this past Wednesday, I've always dissuspected that they might have good ratings because, as I mentioned before, uh, there was a lot of criticism with WWE over the fact how it happened in Raw, where they just throw in a screen of in memory of Jon Huber, Luke Harper. Now that is something that a lot of fans have talked about. They consider that kind of like what the hell. And even I said before, Brian Myers did say what? No 10 bell salute, no video package. I think a lot of fans, I felt that is like an insult. I mean, look, I did say it is what it is. I said 2 reasons. One, um, he was with one, we haven't seen an actual tribute show like this since Eddie Guerrero, and two, he was no longer with AEW. That's one of the few reasons. But I did kind of figured that sooner or later, once the show was going to be out, that AEW was going to have the much bigger ratings. And here is what happened. Now, I'm not saying it's important, but pay attention why I say this stuff. I'm not saying this because I say it. It's because it's what I see when I come across this on social media or anywhere I find it. AEW drew 977,000 views compared from last week 775,000 views. So that means they nearly made another made would have made another million mark on this one. And for the 18 to 49 demographic, they got a 0.40. And that is pretty huge right there. And here's the comparison with NXT. They drew about 586,000 views. Compared from last week, they drew 698,000 views with the rate of 0.12 in the 18 to 49 demographic. Now, you have noticed the difference. You ask yourself, did the tribute show played a part to it? Like I said before, maybe there was a lot of criticism by WWE fans who felt, why didn't do the show? Now, if they witness this tribute show about Brodie Lee, they would say, why WWE don't do that? Why they haven't? We haven't seen something like this with Eddie Guerrero for a long time. Now, if you guys seen that tribute show, what was it? Batista came out in his little lowrider. That is something, and much of the matches were in tribute. They did the same thing with Owen Hart. And what I like about this tribute, like I said before, they put a pause to their storylines and made some good matches that they set ups for storylines. Put that on hold and say, look, let's put this on hold for a moment right here. Let's focus on the life of this man who it's gone too soon. That is something I like about it. There is time for that, for all of this, for another time. But if you guys know, and I said this to many of my friends, I say this, you know Vince's ego, time is money. He has no time to put every storyline, every match that were booked that fans came to see on hold. But I ask you guys this favor. I ask you guys this. Would you want, if you know for you hear the story of a wrestler who passed away, you think it's a good idea to put a wrestling show on hold of their actual storylines they've been posting and pay attention? Let's pay tribute to the life of a man that we love and adore and enjoyed watching. Would you want to do that? If it was me, yes, I would want to do that. But Vince refused. Will never do that. But like I said, it is what it is, and I can't do nothing about it. You guys can't do nothing about it. But all we can do now is praise AEW for one hell of a show. Now, I could say it's only temporary for all you diehard fans of that, but keep in mind, is Vince willing to do a show like this? We haven't seen anything like this since Eddie Guerrero. And we'll never see that again in WWE. But if they do this in AEW or any other promotion, I'm guarantee you they're gonna do that. So that's all I gotta say for all of you guys. You know, to understand that's what the ratings are, that's how the viewership ended. Now I'm not saying that AEW won the show. They already won this Wednesday, period, by putting out a good show. If you cry because of a man who's taken, it's okay to cry. But like I said, it they did a good show. I loved it. I was emotional. That's what we needed. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it's what we needed to pay tribute to a fallen wrestler. So, I think I talked too much. So, hope you guys enjoyed the new year. And I kicked off this episode for you guys starting 2021. So, I must bid all of you guys adieu. So, goodbye. Mwah. And welcome to 2021. And have a good day. Bang.